Give me a second. Let me check to see if I'm expecting Jeremy today or not. Okay, I think so, but I am gonna join as I'll be right back as SIG MC in the meantime. Hmm. Okay, looks like I can't for some reason, and also Jeremy is not going to be here today, and then neither Steven. So I am going to attempt to run this, but we won't be able to screen share. I'm so sorry. You will have to follow in your own personal, let me open the chat, copy of the agenda. Please follow the agenda here since we don't have screen sharing. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday, August 12th iteration of the SIG multi-cluster meeting. Let's start with the agenda. I put something on here, actually, which I'm opening now, CAP 5313, Placement Decision API for Multi-Cluster Scheduling. So I wanted to pull this up because it had been waiting for some comments, particularly from Jeremy. Then Jeremy added some comments. I see that, Mike, you've added some. I think you're on the call. I think I saw your
Yes, I am on the
thumbs up pass by at some point. Yeah. So cool. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to make sure that the ball was still rolling on this, not something super specific. I realize that that the person that you were responding to is not in this call right now. So maybe this is not the most helpful time to discuss it, but just wanted to make sure it was on everybody's radar who is following this of the latest. Mike, did you want to add anything about the comments that you made?
No, well, yes.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
Yes, but you're right. We are waiting kind of on Jeremy again, but it's not Jeremy's fault. He posted a really good feedback. He's basically saying, he's questioning the intention of this cap, right? And I guess I didn't really address it that well in the beginning, where we're not trying to formalize the placement request, which is
Uh-huh.
essentially the placement API. But we're trying to get to the decision part. But what you're saying is in some more of a complex scenarios, you really
Mhm.
can't just rely on the placement decision. Then the consumer end up really requires the placement request or the placement API anyways to make
Yeah.
a one decision. But there's obviously value in just having the placement decision, which take care of, I don't know if simple is the right word or good word, but at least these simple basic scenarios, right? So I really want, I guess I put in my, well, I was stuck on this and I end up just putting it as a non-goal anyways to formalize placement request. The other feedbacks are taken care of as well. But yeah, we're just waiting again on Jeremy to see if this cap can continue forward, or do we actually need to unify, essentially unify the placement decision and the placement API together. So, we just hammer it out all at once. But I would like to add that it's going to be quite a challenge, to
Yeah.
formalize and have a standardized placement request that works for everyone's, custom scheduler. So we'll just have to see. Thank you, Laura,
Okay.
for bringing this up.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm adding some triage notes now. What I've got is that the main like crux of the conversation right now is about the idea of having a placement decision API standardized when we don't have a placement request API standardized, and if they can function without each other. And there's some particular like more complex cases that were brought up. Um, that you added it as a non-goal, but that maybe we want to add some more motivation on the limits and scope of the placement decision API by itself if it doesn't have the request part, to try and like back that up some more. And that overall, we're in a position where we need to determine if this CEP can continue forward as quote unquote one half of the situation where we have basically the response part without the request.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Um, just one more note. Okay. Cool. All right. So I've added that triage note just now. So if anybody is following along with Placement Decision API or wants to be, please take a look at that, and put in your 2 cents. Okay. Then I'm going back to the agenda now, and Arthur had opened some MCS API related. As a reminder to review them, I'm going to open them and see if their triage note is still valid.
Yeah, it should be mostly maybe the ones about service export is not valid because technically, well, there was some follow-up action that I did do after this triage, but yeah.
Okay, let me click on those first since you brought those up. So I'm looking at the MCS API repo service add service export condition type / reasons first. And yeah, you said that you updated this PR and the associated kept PRT is the same existing type as discussed in last week's SIG-MC meeting. Following this week meeting, okay, there's links, love it.
Basically, in the last
Okay, yeah,
point
I
of
see.
the triage note you added
Oh yeah, I
like
see
3
it.
weeks ago, there was the plan, Arthur will update the PR, blah, blah, blah. And I did the
Okay,
plan, basically.
I love that. Okay, the plan has been done, yay. And I'm literally writing this as the note, ready for review again, just so it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, okay, and then this is the same. Where this, I mean, is the KEP. Updates per a prior plan triage note in the MCS API repo have been done as of. Copy link. Copying link. Copying link. Ready for review again. Okay. All right, so that's that one. And then how about dual stack? Is this valid still? Do we have any?
Yeah, it just
Okay.
needs
I mean, like any
is
triage note, that is.
yeah, it should be maybe wait. The triage notes.
Yeah, there's one a while ago. Okay, want to limit. I'm looking at the cap one, and last week there's a comment that says triage notes about limiting shoulds, link the service, dual scat docs. There are some specific things. Edge case, that is hard when a cluster says heterogeneous. We need to articulate. Okay, I see. Okay,
Yeah,
so
well, I try to like make clarification about that, but it's I mean most of this is implementation defined, but as outlined in the
right.
this cap change actually. So
Is there
Okay.
something you need from me next on this, Arthur?
well, I mean probably to get it merged, we need the approval of Jeremy or Steven. So
Okay. Okay. I just
but
wanted to make sure I wasn't blocking. So
no, but I mean you can formally stamp it. It would be helpful. I think.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think that would help Mike just because some like some of them
Alright.
are in reaction to your comments. But yeah,
Sounds good. I'll read through after this then.
Mike will do a triple check since several changes are in reaction to his comments in the
I
first.
think both of these are in relatively good shape as far as I remember now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the service export condition, it's mostly the MCS API PR, which is the main thing, and for the IP family, it's the cap one because, well, the MCS API is like trivial change.
All right, I'm making the note here to cross-reference this. Link CC Stephen and Jeremy. Okay. All right, I've added the triage note to the enhancements one that also references the MCS API one in the MCS API repo. Okay. Moving on. Owen.
Yeah, this is a quick one. Sorry.
Yes, no, go ahead.
Um,
I'm opening.
yeah,
it.
basically, Laura, I think you'd mentioned that you wanted Ryan to take a look at this one as well. It's just a very
yeah.
simple, just like fix to the cap. Although there's also kind of a larger discussion about whether we should just remove that section of the cap altogether. So anyway, Ryan, if you get a chance, would love your input on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already approved. Do I need to do a LT LGTM?
Okay, yeah, you have to use the prowbot commands, not the GitHub interface ones, confusingly. So do a slash LGTM and then new line slash approve. If
let me see if
it's
I
happening
now have the
live.
yeah, let me see if I now have
Okay,
the permission to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm watching it happen. Okay. Yeah, so now the prowbot is like, yay. And then it should merge it. Okay.
But just the background is that this is still working on the secret, but we now have the non-secret version, right? So this is kind of just not the recommended way anyway. It was
That's
never
correct.
recommended way anyway.
Right, and the new like external credential provider plugin model could still, have one that uses a secret. So that's kind of where I was saying we could rip this part out entirely, and if somebody still wanted to do a secret-based thing, they could do it as a plugin. But we don't have to go too deep into that right now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I guess Owen, consider a follow-on PR at some point that makes the relationship between the credential provider solution and the secret ones more clear, or it sounds like there's a variation where some things get ripped out, possibly, or appendicized or something, whenever you feel that's needed.
Great, will do.
Okay, cool. All right, I am going back to the agenda where Shane says WGAI gateway proposal.
Hey.
Hey, Shane, what's up?
What's up?
What's
Hey,
up?
yeah, just following. All right.
Very good.
Well,
Good
just following
Tuesday,
up from the
everybody.
last couple of times. Yeah, following up from the last couple of times. I wasn't able to make it to the last one, but somebody else representing the AI Gateway Working Group Initiative. For those who
Yeah.
are not here for that, it's in that doc that I linked, kind of what it is, and there's a PR up now to that the steering committee is looking at. We had suggested that Multicluster seemed like a potentially good sponsoring SIG for this, and as I understand it, Mike Morris and Keith Maddox from Microsoft kind of checked in with you last week, and some of the lingering questions about what role, if any, Multicluster would play. There were a couple lingering questions that were like, what are the expectation of stakeholder SIGs, and
Yeah.
wanting more clarity on the definition of done. I'll actually do them in reverse order.
Cool.
So I think there is, what's the right way to put it? I think it's common, or we at least see it as kind of normal for working groups to run for a very long time and potentially have very big scope. We actually are being very deliberately trying to avoid that here. And we've even said that like we'd really like to be exiting at a year, if not less. Our goals are mostly laid out in that document as kind of specific features, but really a feature set, a feature area, if you will, for networking that we want to get defined and then proposed to the correct SIGs and subprojects so that it can be covered by Kubernetes. And right now that feature list is not multi-cluster oriented so much, although it touches on it. So the definition of done is currently mostly like those features. I'm sure the scope will grow a little bit, but we're trying to be very deliberate about like having a clean exit for this working group.
Right.
I don't know that I can give you like these are the exact things,
Sure.
because we
No, I
have to
get that.
do some exploration. Like we have to do some building of consensus, seeing what everybody's thinking first, and the working group has to start first for that to happen. But hopefully that's helpful in answering the question of like clarity on the definition of done. As for what the expectation of stakeholder SIGs are, I think there is like a textbook definition somewhere about like what a stakeholder SIG does.
Yeah.
But I think the bare minimum is really just like we would involve you in PRs, and that could be it. If that's really all you want, like is just to see proposals and be kind of CC'd in on proposals, we could do it at that level if that's all you want to do. Alternatively, if you want to kick it up a notch and you feel like, no, actually we want to be more deeply involved, we could have representation from your SIG directly in the working group, helping with the proposals and expand the goals to include one or more multi-cluster oriented goals. And that decision, I mean, the decision whether you want to sponsor it at all and like be clued in on PRs versus going all the way up to saying like maybe being more deeply involved in like the proposal process is up to you. I don't think there's anything set in stone that we couldn't like. I don't think anybody's going to be like SIG multi-cluster is on the hook here for this, that, and the other thing because they're a sponsoring SIG. As long as we're very clear up front with what level you actually do want to be involved at. So that's all we really need to do is kind of document what level you will be involved at, what level you want to be involved at, if at all, if you even want to be involved at all.
Yeah, I think this may have like gone through the grapevine from last week, but just to reiterate some of last week, I think there was like, a general sense that like, yeah, we're interested in the things that you are talking about. It sounds like it's in a really generative time. So like having a multi-cluster perspective is of course useful at that time period, depending how wide the scope is, or, I think there's a way you could run this group that's like once it hits multi-cluster you're like nope, non-goal, bye, or whatever, if you like really wanted to. So but I don't think that's necessarily what you're set up to do right now. But yeah, I think what was unclear to us is if that's something where like it's our responsibility, like if we are sponsoring SIG and what that means. If we're not a sponsoring SIG, it feels like we could still comment on those things or like for things that are relevant to us. So like what's the kind of difference between those two? And then, yeah, I think what are the written in the legal code of Kubernetes expectations? And then what's your as a group expectations for us, because I think we would need to knock our heads together to make sure that we could give you the right representation if you had a certain level of expectation. So yeah, I think we like aren't like, I don't think we're so uninterested that we're like, ha ha ha, no, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, figuring out what that expectation is important to us so we can see how
Yeah,
formalized we need to make it on our side.
I think what I'm trying to say is I think you can kind of define it yourself with
Yeah.
the bare minimum being you are pulled into proposals at
Right.
kind of like some stage of readiness for the proposals. Like I think that's the bare minimum is like multi-cluster was included in the proposal process before the proposal moved forward so that they could say this works or does not work for multi-cluster or this, etc. That's bare minimum. And then it goes on from there with whatever you want.
Okay. Another
I think the
question I
whole
know.
group is very open to you adding goals is I guess maybe the other finer
Okay.
point to put on it. If
All
you
right, yeah.
want to add multi-cluster goals, I don't think we want to add like 400 goals.
Sure, I get that.
I think we all like the idea that this would be multi-cluster oriented to some degree.
Okay, got it. All right, that is actually very helpful to understand. And
Well, we have a
like,
use case that is kind of the prominent use case right now, and it's an egress use case where we want to cover for an AI gateway. Right now, a lot of things are wrapped around model serving, like serving things inside of the cluster that you're in and then doing inference to it. And the gateway and API inference extension is part of that. That story right now of like, I'm doing model serving, I'm routing traffic inside of the cluster. But the egress use case keeps coming up with everyone's users over and over again. I have an application that does inference, but it's not in my cluster. Like I'm not buying GPUs. Get out of here. And that use case can be to the cloud, but it also could be a multi-cluster use case. So that's one of the ones that keeps coming up is like this could tie into multi-cluster and maybe seems potentially natural because it may be natural for operations to create the cluster where all the GPUs are and have other clusters that would ultimately communicate with those for inference. Like that seems like a very natural setup because it's not, I mean, I'm sure there are people that just dollar bill y'all. They just throw GPUs at every cluster they have, but
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I can see how, as like the shape of what that egress looks like to non-other Kate's clusters, like naturally comes to being that could have some inertia against what people might expect if they were going cluster to cluster for the same thing. So yeah, that is
and
of
having your
interest to
guidance
us.
on like how to navigate that cluster to cluster like inference stuff would be helpful.
Okay. So I know that you've been talking about this with us for at least like a month maybe, and probably a lot longer before then. Did you guys like start or like are you guys stuck by us
I
slash
think we
like
had the I think
what's
we
up with
had
that?
the Larry Moe Curly Joe stuck on the door effect where like 3 working groups all wanted to happen all at once, all saying AI. So we're
Okay,
just
sure.
kind of lagging a bit for steering committee review because they just like
Okay.
suddenly had so many AI working groups pop up.
Yeah, isn't that how
But
it is?
I think we're pretty imminent, all things considered.
Okay, great. I think we can take this information. I think it's up to us, along with the leads, but also for everybody who's here. I think we need to like understand like what other people in the community think and who would be interested, I think too. It's not that we necessarily need to like assign, but I do think having an idea of what like power we have, like review power and proposal power we have like behind the scenes, try and estimate that a little bit so we can meet expectations properly. But yeah, if you can give us like a week or two to talk about that, and then I think we can give you a more definitive answer.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, it doesn't necessarily have to happen before we merge the PR either. Those things can, the working groups can update and say we have a new sponsoring SIG. To my knowledge, that's not a problem. I think it was mentioned with one of the other working groups. It would be, I don't want to ask much, but it would be helpful. We would appreciate it if you would just drop on the PR, like we are evaluating this. That would be nice.
Yeah, I can add
Just
it right
to
now.
show the steering committee that there may be interest and it's non-committal.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you for that.
Any other thoughts from other people on the call on this topic? I've added some notes into the agenda too, so I think that covers what Shane answered for our questions. And I think I'm just going to make a little note. Next steps for SIG MC, discuss over the next approximately 2 weeks, including with leads, about these expectations and how much peoples are interested in participating. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Thanks for
Thank you. I
coming through
appreciate the
again,
time.
Shane. Yeah. We appear to have reached the end of our scrub/agenda. It's kind of a cross chimera type thing right now. Is there anything else anybody on the call would like to bring up last minute or otherwise share? Going once. Going twice. I just saw that John faked screen sharing. Sorry, I was not looking at the chat, but that's hilarious. Thank you, John. Oh, so
Yeah, I
there is a
figured I
way.
would try it. There is a way. It looks blurry from my view. I'm not sure it renders blurry
You
because
know,
it's a reflection, but you know.
I can see the shape of the words.
It's
It's
quasi
true.
legible.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
yeah. I don't know how to do the OBS settings to make it less blurry, but I figured I'd
Yeah.
give it a go.
I love that. It's so powerful, so resourceful. What is the necessity is the mother of invention. Great job.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, in that case, we'll wrap a bit early. I believe that yeah, I guess I'll see you all on the internet, and otherwise talk to you next week.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.